With the United Kingdom, Britain, and Canada seeking closer relations with China, how should the United States be proceeding with the CCP? In the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing testimony this week on the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI with the Arctic Frost. I sat down earlier with Senator Ted Cruz of Texas to discuss these developments. Senator Ted Cruz, thanks so much for joining.
Steve, thanks for having me.
Senator, Hong Kong media mogul and British citizen Jimmy Lai sentenced to 20 years in prison. This is the harshest sentence yet under Beijing's draconian new national security law. What's your reaction to this, and what does it reveal about the nature of the CCP?
Look, this is horrific. It is wrong. It is the Chinese Communist Party being abusive. Jimmy Lai has shown incredible courage, speaking up for the people of Hong Kong, speaking up for freedom, speaking up for democracy. In 2019, I traveled to Hong Kong. I met with Jimmy Lai at the time. I met with democracy activists who were standing up and protesting the CCP. The CCP at the time was pretending that it was going to protect some human rights, some economic rights, some free speech rights in Hong Kong. We now know all of that is a lie, that it was the Chinese Communist Party's intention to come in and crush Hong Kong and make it entirely subservient to the dominance and oppression of the Chinese Communist Party. Jimmy Lai is 78 years old. To sentence him to 20 years in prison, that is a life sentence. And that tragically is exactly the Chinese Communist Party's intention. The United States has rightly called for Jimmy Lai to be released. He should be released, and I'm going to do everything I can to shine a light, and I've done so for more than a decade, to shine a light on the oppression, the murder, the torture, the human rights abuses of the Chinese Communist Party.
It certainly didn't take long for the CCP to show its true nature, Senator. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, under quite a bit of heat and pressure since coming back from China recently, seeking more partnership, more ties with them. This comes as his own citizen is sitting in a jail since 2020, now sentenced to 20 years. How should the United States and the West ultimately be positioning ourselves when it comes to dealing with the Chinese Communist Party?
So look, when I was first elected to the Senate 14 years ago, I said at the time that China poses the greatest geopolitical threat to the United States for the next 100 years. I got to tell you, when I started saying that, that was a very lonely view in the United States Senate. All of the Democrats disagreed with me, and most of the Republicans disagreed with me. They just looked to China and they saw nothing but dollar signs as far as the eye can see. The Chinese Communist Party is evil and it is oppressive. They commit murder, they commit torture. They have over 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps right now, the largest incident of human slavery on the face of the planet. They engage in espionage, they engage in propaganda. And I believe that we need a comprehensive strategy to prevail. China's objective is global domination. They're not hiding it. And we need a comprehensive strategy, just like we had to defeat the Soviet Union in the Cold War. We need the same approach to the Chinese communists. Now, one of the interesting things, the Chinese communists are very sensitive to public pressure. They're very sensitive to being called out. And so using the bully pulpit to shine a light on their oppression is very valuable. That's something that I've done. For example, Mark Swidon. Mark Swidon is a Texan, an American, who was wrongfully imprisoned in China for more than a decade. More than a decade, he sat in a dark cell, horribly abused, and I spent years speaking out for Mark Swidon. The pressure we put on China was sufficient that they released him. We need to do the same thing for Jimmy Lai. Shine a light and use the leverage we have to pressure China to release him.
Senator, I really don't think that you're overstating it at all, and the point that you make about them being sensitive to that pressure, culturally saving face, it's just different in Asia and in China, so you're absolutely right. Switching gears just a little bit here, the Senate Judiciary Committee this week holding a hearing on the Arctic Frost investigation.
Yep.
That's the probe that secretly obtained phone records of members of Congress, including senators, including yourself. I want to play a clip here from your colleague, Marsha Blackburn.
We are ultimately here this morning because Jack Smith violated his oath of office. He trampled on Americans' rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, all for one reason: to go after President Donald Trump and conservatives across this great nation.
Senator, you were also one of the targets of this operation. What do you hope this investigation ultimately reveals or uncovers, and what are you hearing right now?
Well, there needs to be real accountability. Jack Smith was a modern-day Javert. He was on a mission, and it was a political mission. It was a political mission to stop Donald J. Trump and to stop the American people from re-electing President Trump as president. It was an absolute abuse of power. We saw the Department of Justice and the FBI weaponized to target the political opponents of the Biden White House. And Jack Smith, the abuse he carried out makes Watergate look like a junior varsity volleyball game. Jack Smith was responsible for surveilling, for getting the phone records of 20% of the Republicans in the U.S. Senate. It was a fishing expedition. By the way, Jack Smith also represented to Judge Boasberg that 20% of the Republicans in the Senate were likely to destroy evidence if we were aware of his subpoenas. And Judge Boasberg just stamped non-disclosure orders to hide the fact that we were being surveilled. This was a political operation. It was an absolute abuse of power. And in addition to the members of Congress that they were surveilling, they also sought subpoenas from more than 400 conservatives, Republicans, groups like Turning Point USA, activists all over the country. It was a complete abuse of power, and people need to be held accountable. Those who broke the law, they need to be prosecuted.
Senator, to your point, one thing is, about making sure that the lawfare, the targeting, the weaponization is stopped and that those gears stop churning. The other that you mentioned is justice. We're 1 year in. Are you confident that we will see that?
I'm hopeful. I have urged Pam Bondi. I've urged Kash Patel, both Pam and Kash are friends of mine. I've known them both a long time. They have unbelievably difficult jobs. Right at the core of their job is to bring back integrity to the Department of Justice and the FBI. Integrity means not being used as a tool of political oppression, but rather following the law regardless of party. And a huge part of that is holding accountable those who broke the law. It is my hope that's what the Department of Justice will do, and that's certainly what I'm going to continue pressing for from the Senate.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz, appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.